two meetings. We have the April 8th, 2021 regular meeting minutes, and then we have the minutes from our workshop on April 22nd. Would anyone like to address the minutes from our regular meeting first? Were there any questions or comments or revisions that anyone would like to make to those? All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move.
All right. All right, thank you, commissioners. All in favor of approving the minutes for the April 8th, 2021 meeting? We will do the Brady Bunch screen again. I'll start with Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes.
Commissioner Brox.
Yes.
Commissioner Horsch.
Yes.
Commissioner Goblish.
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Yes.
And I will vote to approve as well. All right, the meetings from our last meeting are unanimously accepted. We also had the minutes from our April 22nd workshop. I'm guessing we'll be talking a little bit more about those later in the meeting. So unless there are any changes to those particular minutes, this would be the opportunity to speak up. All right, if not, maybe we'll entertain a motion to accept. All right, we have two of you. Thank you very much. All those in favor of accepting the April 22nd minutes from our workshop, we will go around and vote. We will start with Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks.
Yes.
Commissioner Horsch.
Yes.
Commissioner Goblish.
Yes.
Sullivan. And I will vote to approve as well. And the minutes from our workshop are unanimously accepted. Thank you, everyone. This evening, item 3 is the bills. Do we have any comments on that, Eric or John, that you want to make this week?
No, pretty standard items we have under the bills for April. We have the $6,000 grant for outdoor seating, which is the first one, and I believe the only one that we've received so far. And so we have the payment for that one, and then a few other standard bills. So I can stand for any questions if you have them.
All right, does anyone have any questions about the bills for this month for John? All right, seeing none, we will vote. Do we have a motion to accept?
If there's no further comments or questions, I'll move to approve the bills.
Thank you, Commissioner Solve. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. All those in favor of accepting the bills, item 3 on our agenda tonight, we will go around and vote. Please signify by saying aye. Commissioner Vaughn.
Aye.
Commissioner Brox.
Aye.
Commissioner Horsch.
Aye.
Commissioner Goblish.
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan. And I will vote to approve as well. We have a unanimous approval of the bills. Thank you, everyone. Now on to item number 4, the business for our meeting tonight. And the first item is A, the authorize the signature for the contract for private development at 317 East 3rd Street between HEDRA and River City Developments, LLC. John or Eric, would you like to lead us into that conversation?
Okay, well, Mr. President, I will turn it over to Eric Moss here, who's been working diligently with Mr. Seward and along with our city attorney to put together this agreement. And I'll turn it over to you, Eric. Thank you.
Thank you, John. President Piney and members of HEDRA, before you this evening is a request from staff to authorize signature on a proposed contract for private development at 317 East 3rd Street. This would be a contract between HEDRA and River City Investments, LLC, which is operated by Mr. Stewart, who we have worked with in the past. Included in your packet was the full agreement. We wanted to highlight for you a few key components. First one being that, as approved by both HEDRA and the City Council, HEDRA would sell the property for $1. It would require that no later than 30 days after closing that they submit for building permit. Would stipulate, or does stipulate, I should say, that if the project were to be sold within 5 years from the date of occupancy, that from the proceeds of the sale, developer wouldn't pay HEDRA the assessed value in 2021. We do the same thing for our land for a dollar sales in the industrial park. The intention there is that that way somebody doesn't cash out the city's public subsidy in an unreasonable timeline. Subject to unavoidable delays, and initially in the draft agreement and the one that's included in your packet, it had dates for a project that would begin this year. In conversation with the developer, said based on timelines and contractor availability, that it's not likely that construction could begin in earnest yet in 2021, but did say that he would agree to submitting for our land use applications no later than August 1st. Talking with John, we felt that was important from a staff standpoint to ensure that the project is moving forward, and then with a construction start date of April 1st, with a substantial completion by December 31st, 2022. So a slight change that staff is proposing, which the developer supports for HEDRA consideration. And that sums up the highlights of the development agreement. And again, we're looking for authorization for signature on that agreement. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
All right, thank you, Eric, for your efforts, both you and John, on this one. It's been definitely a long process. Does anyone on the commission have any questions or comments tonight on this? All right, we look like we are pretty much in agreement with what's before us then. Would anyone like to make a motion at this point?
I'll move to approve the signatures for the contract for the private development of 317 East 3rd Street between HEDRA and River City Investments LLC.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, commissioners. We will begin the voting process. Again, we'll go around. Please signify. Yes, Eric.
Mr. President, I just want to ensure that all HEDRA members and that the intention of that motion second was that it reflect the changes as presented by staff this evening.
Yes.
Very good. All right, we are now able to commence with the voting. We will start with Commissioner Vaughn. Commissioner Brooks.
Yes.
Commissioner Horsch.
Yes.
Commissioner Goldberg.
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Yes.
And I will vote to approve as well. Thank you, everyone. We have a unanimous approval tonight. Well done. All right. Let's see. Next on our items for business tonight is item B, the strategic plan follow-up. I'm guessing John or Eric will lead us into this conversation tonight.
Thank you, President Piney. Again, thank you for your efforts in meeting a couple of weeks ago on the strategic plan workshop and providing us updates over the last few days on your priorities. In putting together the strategic plan, we want to be able to make sure a couple of things occurs. One is that it's manageable, that the plan itself is something that is doable within the time period. We're looking at this over the next year to 2 years. I think the plans and the steps that we established here out of the workshop, those 4 items here, doable, which is great. What I wanted to be able to dig down a little bit deeper with the board is to develop how strongly the opinions were on one item over another, and to get a better idea of having some some buy-in and consensus on some of these items. So I'm going to go through a few of these items here. The point of tonight's meeting is twofold on this item. One, want to make sure that what we have down on paper here is consistent with the thoughts of the board. This is just the beginning outline of what we would be doing. If we have agreement here or modifications to this list, our next step here would be to fill this in with some more details relating to measurable and manageable steps so that we can go through and report back and make sure that we're making progress on this. And the other part of that is looking at our budget for 2022. We'll be putting together our budget items in June. So having discussion on potential budget allocations for council consideration at that time will be a very timely issue to consider. So that's kind of the purpose of what I'm looking at here tonight. I'm going to share my screen here, and what I'm putting up is a document that I shared with you all earlier today. These are the 4 areas that we talked about and that we came to conclusion out of the workshop. What I asked all of you to do is to provide some prioritization of some of these areas. And so I'll kind of go through each of these broadly and leave it open for some discussion. We talked some about meeting Hastings housing needs as a general goal. We had buy-in from Dennis and Bruce. Definitely, this is something we should be doing. Identifying blight for code enforcement action. Peggy was on board with that. We talked a little bit about a potential new loan program for affordable housing. We had Lori say, yes, this is something that we should do. Dennis wasn't sure about if we should move forward with that or not. So as a general goal here with housing needs, it appears from the board that housing needs and the identification, the measurement of that, the potential of providing some limited assistance is something that appears to be an objective for HEDRA as a group. And so I wanted to stop there, open it up for any discussion related to that. Is this something that we should move forward with? Is this something that people have questions on? Is there more information that needs to be clarified on this topic? So I'm going to open it up to the group on this one.
John, I'd like to make a comment right off. I think that there may be a way to kind of address this that's kind of a catch-all for a few of the things that show up in this section of the list, but also elsewhere. I think the idea for these loans is great, but I was just curious about what kind of benchmarks would be set for them. The funding would be available, but how would we determine what was historically significant or, a structure within a neighborhood that if we stabilize it, it would really help the neighborhood overall? An idea that I came up with is that maybe if HEDRA did provide the funds, we worked in conjunction with the Historic Preservation Commission. Maybe twice a year, there was an application date. Applications were submitted by anyone in the community. The Historic Preservation Committee reviewed these projects for their significance or their historic stature, the viability of renovation, and then they ranked them. They present them to HEDRA, and then based on our funding for that particular year, we do in fact provide those types of loans. I think that might be a good way where we can become involved in that. We can become an enabler perhaps in a positive way, but not ultimately, the people who claim to have the best grasp on historic preservation within the community. I think this would be a great way for HEDRA to work in conjunction with a group of folks that have already been selected, much like we have, to sort of speak up on behalf of that element in our city. So I think that, my 2 cents on the housing needs, I think I'm obviously a fan of rental housing. I don't think that's any secret. but I think this loan idea would really be a great thing. I guess that would just be my comment. If anyone else likes to speak to that, please do.
I guess I can just supplement that. I am in agreement with Mr. Piney. And I think historic preservation is one component of things that we need to look at. And obviously that wouldn't be for all sites, like blighted sites that we'd like to recover, but maybe just, but one amongst other economic decisions too.
Right. Does anyone else have any questions or comments regarding that? Yes, Commissioner Horsch.
This is kind of a different path, but when I rank that, what I was looking at is there opportunities to redevelop to make more affordable housing in Hastings? I think that for me is an emphasis, whether it be blighted properties or, you know, the Target site, whatever. That's why I ranked it high. I would like to see, you know, that always being in the forefront of what we do, so we can keep people working in Hastings, living in Hastings, and, you know, being able to move up that economic ladder.
Thank you, commissioners. Does anyone else have any comments or suggestions? Do you have any reaction to any of that?
No, what we plan to do with the comments and the initiatives that are before you tonight is to fill those in with steps so that we could take a look at how we could propose ideas, how we would measure our progress towards meeting these. What I'm hearing tonight is the historic homes and the affordability of homes towards that market are important aspects. And so what are some ideas that we as staff could come back with that may assist in achieving those?
All right, thank you.
Okay, so I'm moving on here to number 2, which is kind of the big portion of what we do here, I think, is HEDRA, and that's the development of underutilized sites. We've discussed a number of sites in a number of different locations. I think everyone on the board chimed in that yes, development of these sites is a priority for the city. I looked at this in a couple of different ways. When I first looked at this, I thought, well, maybe it might be best to come up with a prioritization of sites among the board. I was struggling with that when you take a look at the market conditions and the readily availability to develop. Is there a person that is an entity that is looking to develop that site? Is the owner looking to make a change? So really there's sites that we identify as, yes, these are areas in which development or redevelopment should occur, that we should provide assistance. Now, the word assistance can be measured in a number of different ways. Anything from that would cost no money to us, in which we help people along, or may involve us being involved in some sort of financial capacity in that. So what I'm proposing is looking at these sites as a whole, making sure that these sites make sense for us as staff to dig down deeper with the developers and the owners of these sites to really make some determinations as to, number one, what is the likelihood for development within the next couple of years, 5 years? What's the gap for these developments? And then we can make a determination as far as what our involvement might be in it. There's some of these that we're doing already like that. The Target site in particular, we had a few people that targeted the Target, which is not surprising. It's been a vacant building and for quite some time here. And what we've been doing with that site, and what we need to redouble our efforts on, is to try to figure out what that gap is and how we can motivate development. And so what I'm proposing is to take a look at these different sites that we have between downtown 61 and Vermilion Street, Looks like I'm assuming there's agreement that these are sites of priority, that we as staff would continue to make contact and to come back to the board with what we find and say, hey, here's the sites from talking to developers and talking to the owners that we think are the most readily available for something to happen. And then to come back with what we believe our role and what we might be able to offer on that, so that we can provide an impetus to turn these ideas into something that might be reality. So a little bit different than what I originally looked at this. I thought maybe we try to pin these down to a couple, but the more I thought about it, I think it would be best to take a look at the list itself, make sure, number one, it's inclusive, make sure we're not missing anything on there, and two, look at that to begin with to see what sites are most readily developed. If there are sites on there that you as a group or an individual say, yeah, I get that, John, but this site needs attention now. That doesn't preclude that identification. And what I've been hearing from folks is that the target site, for example, may be that site. But I'll leave it open for questions and discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. I have a couple of comments on that. I actually think that's a great idea. I think that a lot of the projects that came up on the list ended up being, privately owned. I think that these are folks that already have the property on the market and are trying to sell it themselves. Us to buy it from them only to try and sell it again at most likely a reduced rate doesn't make any sense for us as HEDRA. I think, John, your suggestion is great. I think that all of the sites that are currently, under private ownership, such as Crossroads, Target, the Westview Mall site, the Marcus Theater area, and even the Midtown site, those are all retail areas that, could always use a little shot in the arm. If there are things that we can do that don't cost us money, but only involve perhaps reducing some parking, creating outlot pads for smaller projects within the development, and encouraging green space, I think that we should do that. Just as you said, let's work with the owners to work with what they have, encourage them to invest in their property before we step in. I think there are other areas that came up that are not maybe cohesive sites. And these are maybe ones where there are a lot of blight, and this is where it may make sense for HEDRA to step in and do initial property purchases. I guess, let's see, the two that I saw on the list actually were the site where the Norwest Bank was downtown at 4th and Vermilion. That whole block has been in varying stages of, being occupied, being for sale, being vacant. That's a site that without maybe a cohesive piece of that developable doesn't make sense for anyone. So maybe that's the type of project where it makes sense for HEDRA to make an investment. So your idea of kind of looking at development, as what can we encourage the owner to do versus what should we step in and do, I think is a great distinction to make right off. I think that it'll, get the most bang for our buck, and again, encourage private investment rather than public initially. I know that was kind of a long statement there, but does anyone have any comments or suggestions? Yes, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. As you can see, my numbers were based on number 2 here, because I guess I looked at the role of HEDRA, and you're right, Commissioner Piney, those are mostly privately owned. But I think my goal out of putting my priorities there was first to announce, HEDRA is saying as an organization, if we came together saying that's a priority to us to redevelop that land. I think it gains attention by potential developers, but I think it also tells staff to go out and have that conversation, and it may be a conversation with HEDRA too. Bring in the current landowners, current businesses, and say, what can we do to make this place go to the next level? With that, what can we do? And I use ArtSpace as an example. John kind of led that project. We orchestrated it. We didn't do it. It wasn't us doing it. It was private developer, but John put it all together. He kept all the pieces together and found the opportunities to make it work. That's kind of why I put all my numbers on number 2, giving staff that chance to say, be the one that orchestrates it and raise awareness. If we agree that these are important to us, let's make that press release. Send that out there that HEDRA wants to work on getting the target site replaced, fixed up. I think the community is going to jump in and say, well, that must mean the city is interested in taking care of it. I think that's important to make that message. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any other additional comments or questions? All right, John, do you have any follow-up to that?
No, I appreciate the comments on that. I see as we meet over the next few months here, and it'll be more stipulated when we come back with stuff at the June meeting, that we have some regular updates on some of these projects that come forward with conversations and things that we propose and ways that we can make these things happen. So I appreciate that. So with the development side, I think as Commissioner Vaughn and Commissioner Piney had both stated, the development end of it being a development authority is a chief role of what we do. And it's really a matter of, we have limited resources and we have a number of opportunities. It's where we end up putting those resources towards projects that are, number 1, priority as a development for us, and 2, ready in the market to develop. So that's something that we will investigate further and come back with that to you. Another thing that we talked about was improvements in the development process. Had a few individuals there that agreed with that statement. And what we had down was staff was to meet with developers, businesses that have already gone through the development process to gain a better understanding of places for improvement. So really kind of the after service survey, if you will, in which we sit down with people that have gone through the process and figure out how we can make it better, what issues that they encountered, and how we can improve what we do. And certainly from a customer service standpoint organization, it's always good to have that. And so that is something that we will some steps on how we go about and be able to report that to you. So I do appreciate the priority there, and we'll come back with some further steps. Not sure if there was any comments from others on that statement.
All right, thank you, John.
Okay, moving on to business retention and expansion. This is almost similar to the development process. The development process in our review is people that have gone through applications. On business retention and expansion, it's the businesses that have been through the experience of working in Hastings and making sure that the environment is good, making sure that we are aware of what challenges and opportunities are facing industry and getting out and talking with them. And so Eric has started up again a business retention expansion program, which is great. Annually complete 12 of these visits and 100 unique business drop-ins. So there's a couple of different items here. One is this BR&E visit, in which it's more formalized. We ask more probing questions to kind of get an idea of what's going on, and that we measure this against other visits. And then there's just the business drop-ins. Eric has been great at this. I remember one of the things when we first interviewed Eric, he gave one of the best answers to an interview I think I've ever heard, and that was, "What are you going to do in your first 100 days?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to buy a brand new pair of shoes." And I said, "Well, why?" I said, "Well, I'm going to be wearing out my shoes, walking around talking to people." And he's lived up to that. He has been out talking to a lot of people, developing those relationships and having a better idea of what's going on within the community. So that's something that we will continue to do. And not sure if there's any questions related to that.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Eric.
Towards the end, there was a few other things that didn't quite fit into the boxes that we discussed at the workshop. One of the items was a potential, we talked a little bit about this at the workshop, design competition for sites. I think towards the end, Commissioner Vaughn and I think and maybe others talked about, hey, do we have some sort of competition for land in which we incentivize the sale of that based on some sort of contest with design firms or and so forth? So intriguing idea. We didn't formalize it on the list, but wanted to open that one up for discussion, whether that one has merit.
I guess my idea with that would really just be to try and generate excitement and buzz. Even if it wasn't something that materialized into a project, if we threw one of our sites down in front of the drafting class up at the high school and got them involved in a 2-week urban studies project and said, hey, at Friday, guess what, guys? You're going to make a presentation. What do you think would work on that site? What does the future have to say? Do we go to Dakota County Technical College? Do we get them involved? Do we go to the University of Minnesota and get them involved? Coming out of an architecture background, colleges love those opportunities. They're real-time, actual projects. If we even took it one step forward and said, hey, get your college connected with a developer. If your school can put together a project that an actual developer sees a viability in, what an amazing opportunity that would be. Just throwing that out there. I remember how excited I used to get about things like that in school. And I just really think it's an opportunity that we miss out on. We can get some ideas generated without actually having to hire a design firm to do it. And again, I think just the buzz and the excitement and the awareness that it would give HEDRA would really be amazing within the community. So yeah, I guess that's kind of where that came from.
Helpful, President Piney. Maybe I'll tack on to that. And coming from a landscape architecture background, I'll second that oftentimes professors are looking for real life case studies to utilize in their design studios. I still maintain a strong relationship within the Department of Landscape Architecture. From time to time, I'll sit in on review boards. So if this is in fact something that HEDRA might be interested in, tossing a couple sites to the professors to see what interest they may have for now would be the fall semester, I'd be more than happy to make that connection.
Yes, Mark.
Thanks. I personally, Eric, I appreciate that offer. I'm not ready for that yet. I'm ready. I brought it up, John, as maybe it could come with the top 4. I think we're doing this with the city council too. I think we need to, for 21, 22, let's focus on these 4, and some of these might come out of those 4 tactics that we're working on. I'd hate to get it too diluted. It gets us going in too many different places. If we see the opportunity where Eric's connection could make it work or design something in those 4 items, yes, but I don't want to create another priority of, hey, let's go do some more. I think we should focus on the 4 that were in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vaughn. Do we have any other comments or questions? It looks like we have item B and C potentially under other, John.
On B, we may have discussed this a little bit earlier with Commissioner Sullivan's comments on the historic nature and existing structures. So Commissioner Sullivan, is there more to add to that?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think we all kind of have the idea and knowledge that we're kind of known as a historic city, and preserving it for both economic reasons and the uniqueness of our city is vital. So I don't know if there's any specifics I have on it, but I think that should be behind a lot of what we do. So,
Commissioner Sullivan, my comment earlier about involving the Historic Preservation Commission was absolutely meant to capture your concerns with this. I think it would be potentially that process and their involvement that would help us identify, historic structures, and then we would be able to provide that cash flow.
The
So
only thing-
even though those two items, yes, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. And I'm getting some feedback because I'm on my phone. My computer is active. I've been trying to get it to work, but I apologize for the feedback that's coming through if you guys are getting that. I guess my only concern would be we should have the ability to move forward with different projects and not just, that would, I'm so sorry. I'll wait for a second.
Okay.
The joy of Zoom sometimes, that's for
Yeah.
sure. One day we'll look back at this at fond memories, but I'll go on to the next topic here. We can go back
Sorry
to.
about that, guys.
Go ahead, Martha.
The joy of doing meetings from home. A delivery at the door and the dog's going crazy. I guess what I just wanted to reiterate that it wouldn't be based on, it would only be through their recommendation, I guess, for us to explore if they come across something really amazing, but it wouldn't be dependent upon their approval, I guess, is what I just wanted to kind of bring that up. Yeah.
Yep, and my intention would be just to have them rank them, and then of course it would be HEDRA that would have the final approval on that. Thank you, John. Thank you, Martha.
Yeah. And then the last thing I had on here from Commissioner Sullivan, cash flow restoration and maintenance of what makes Hastings unique. And I wonder, Martha, if you might be able to expand a little bit on that.
Just really having a priority in offering loans to folks who want to do restoration, so that we want to market some spots and prioritize cash flow to people who want to revamp cool buildings and not just do so. I mean, it doesn't really matter if it's for business or for homes or whatever, but to really keep the uniqueness of our downtown, especially, but in certain areas, we all kind of know what those areas are, but where the historic homes are, where the historic downtown is, and some of the places through on Vermilion that really could use some help. And to make sure that those folks are getting the cash flow or marketing it so that people can get loans to redo those.
Okay, thank you. Right, so that's what we have back from the short list here from our conversation through the workshop here. I'm certainly open to any other discussion, comments that the board may have tonight. Our intention is to come back at the June 10th meeting with some specific steps that are measurable so that we could track some of these items as we go forward, and also look at what some budgetary impacts might be so that we can put those into some potential requests as we put together our economic development budget for 2022. So thanks again for your work on this. And if there's no other questions, I can move on.
Thank you, John and Eric, very much for your time into this. Does anyone else have any more questions or comments before we set our stuff loose on this? Very good, everyone. Thank you. All right. It looks like we are on to item 5. We have some reports and information tonight.
Reports and updates here. Within your packet, I put in our quarterly report from Open to Business, which goes through some of the figures on who they visited with and who they assisted, which is great. But tucked down deep in here, one of the things that I should have highlighted is that Open to Business started this program called Operation Boot Camp, and a business boot camp, excuse me, in which they would work closely over the course of 4 weeks with individual entrepreneurs to help them tailor their business needs and goals. And they'd work with professionals to help them be better business people. I'm proud to say that Hastings has the first graduate of that program, and that being Nicole DePalma of Caring Hands Massage. So great that she was able to get some information for this program. We've reached out to Nicole, and we're going to be highlighting her activities, and she's agreed to be interviewed. So you'll see more about that, and hopefully it'll entice other people to become involved in that. But I did want to highlight that one fact here that we did have one individual, and the first individual to complete that here. So that's great news. I'm not sure if there was any questions from anyone else related to that.
No, that is very good news. I'm glad to hear that you're going to be highlighting that. Hastings has always been the county seat, so let's make sure we keep that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going on to other items here from the vacancy standpoint, a few changes. Got one space open, 1209 Vermillion Street. We had at Schoolhouse Square, Edward Jones space is coming into that site. Also, another site on Vermillion Street at the 501 building, becoming a fish aquarium store. So that's in here as well. And so not too much change in the vacancy side. On the development side, there's just a lot of things going on right now with new development, particularly on the residential side. Updates from your packet here on the Schoolhouse Square Senior Housing. They're preparing their final building plans for submittal. The council's taking care of some issues with the final agreements and an extension of approvals. They're going to be recording their plat coming up in the next couple of months, starting construction here by the end of July. It's about a 14-month build out. So you'll be seeing activities there at Schoolhouse Square, which is great. On the Confluence, was down there today meeting with the staff. They'll be doing some outdoor improvements there the next couple of weeks, starting that up again. Interior wise, probably in the next 3-4 weeks, they'll be going back on the inside of it. And so they're going through some final approvals of their plan. They did a few plan changes related to two things: the restaurant space. IDM, their hospitality manager, is going to be operating the restaurant. And so they finalized their plans, and those are being in final production on a building plan standpoint. So that's getting to be set. And then from the residential side, they originally had 20 apartments in there. They've reconfigured things around to be 18, to have some larger units in there. So all those plan sets are going to be coming back here. So you'll be seeing more activity happening at the Confluence. Custom Sawdust, we closed on that property. Their building plans are in for review. On Vermillion Acres, that's the senior housing complex on County Road 47. They want to start breaking ground here in August of this year. So we are finalizing their plans and making sure that they can get going there. We gave approval to South Oaks 4th Edition at council a couple of weeks ago. Villas at Pleasant and what's the other one I'm looking for? Villas at Pleasant and Heritage Ridge, excuse me, are well under construction right now with utilities and grading. So that'll just continue to keep going. We approved Wallen 19th Edition to add more lots as well. And the Schoolhouse Scoop is moving downtown. So a lot of things happening around the community right now, which is great. And then I have one other note too, which will be helpful for us, especially for Eric and I, is we, in the budget for 2021, we were able to hire a community development intern. This individual will help with a variety of items related to planning, economic development, historic preservation. So our intern, Grady Timmerman, will be starting here June 7th. And so he may be here for that June 10th HEDRA meeting. I want to have him involved in as much aspects of community development as I can. So it'll be nice to have him here so that he can help out with some of these items as we move through the summer. And that's all I had.
Sure.
Yes, Mark.
Thanks. John, with your meeting with Confluence, did they talk any about communicating to the public on their process or even changing the sign? Did they bring it up to say education would help?
Yeah, we've brought that up to them on a few different occasions here. I mean, Certainly the sign out there with the 2020 date is not a good reflection. And they don't have a real strong presence right now online. I mean, there's a website on IDM that has a short landing page for the confluence. They told me that in June they'd be having a big kickoff from a social media standpoint on their website and other social media avenues, but I haven't heard anything further on that.
Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Horsch.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, I have some acquaintances who were looking for events in 2022 and we're looking to book it. I don't know that there was any outreach, Confluence didn't have a spot to, even start booking events on that, but here or there. But the two senior housing projects, I think, predated me. Are those both market housing units?
Yeah, Commissioner Horsch, one of them, the one at Schoolhouse Square, is a independent living affordable product. So it's a low-income housing tax credit project. And the one on County Road 47 is assisted living and memory care.
All right, thank you, John. I have one more.
And one other thing too, interesting in talking to Confluence, although they don't have a much of a presence online, they have started to book events. I think one of the first events that they booked was for, what was it, August next year? I'm looking at here, see if he remembers.
Yeah, I seem to remember about roughly September, but they said they've got a few weddings on the books for fall of 2022.
Yeah.
Good. I'll pass that on.
John, I had one question. The apartments that are proposed for the Confluence, are those still projected to be market rate if they're kind of shuffling the floor plans around a little bit, or where are those going to land?
Yep, I believe those would be market rate, yes.
Okay, thank you. One other question, sorry. The Edward Jones, are they from another location in Hastings, or is this a new entity in town?
I may look to Eric to see if he knows. I don't know the answer to that question.
My understanding is it's a new Edward Jones location. So the one downtown is going to remain downtown, but this is a new Edward Jones representative.
All right, thank you. Right, it looks like we've covered all of our reports and information for the evening then. Does anyone else have any comments or questions this evening or new topics you'd like to bring up? All right, if not, I will entertain a motion this evening. Yes, Commissioner Vaughn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn this evening. We'll go around the board and please signify with your vote. Commissioner Goldlersch,
Yes.
Commissioner Brox,
Yes.
Commissioner Horsch,
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan,
Yes.
Commissioner Vaughn.
Yes.
I will vote yes as well. Thank you everyone for your time this evening. We are now adjourned.